You see fire almost every day. A candle, a stove, a lighter, maybe a campfire. And because you've seen it so many times, your brain barely notices what you're looking at. But imagine seeing fire for the first time. Not in a fireplace, not inside a metal stove, but in the darkness of an ancient landscape. A glowing thing with no legs that moves by itself. It eats wood. It makes the night bright. It burns anything that comes too close. And yet somehow, it can keep you warm. For an animal that had never seen anything like it before, fire must have seemed almost impossible. But what did our ancestors actually think when they first encountered it? We will never know their exact thoughts. They left no written record, no description, no drawing that says, "This is what I felt." But we can look at the world they lived in, and at what happened after humans began regularly controlling fire. And somewhere between those clues is a remarkable story. The night was cold that a small group had gathered beneath a rocky overhang, pressed close together against the wind. There were no walls and no blankets as we know them. Only animal skins, darkness, and the sound of the landscape moving beyond the shelter. Then the smell arrived. Smoke. The adults looked toward the horizon. A thin gray column rose above the trees. Something was burning. Perhaps lightning had struck dry vegetation. Perhaps a natural wildfire had swept across the grassland. The group watched from a distance. Flames moved through the darkness. Orange, yellow, almost alive. The children hid behind the adults. The animals ran. Birds disappeared into the sky. And the humans watched. At first, fire was probably something to avoid, because nature had already taught them what it could do. Wildfires destroy forests. They kill animals. They consume everything in their path. A creature that approached too closely could be burned before it had time to escape. But then something strange happened. After the flames passed, the world was different. The ground was black. Trees stood like dark skeletons. Smoke hung in the air. And among the ashes, there was food. Animals killed by the fire. Roots exposed beneath burned vegetation. Seeds and plants altered by heat. The same force that destroyed a landscape had also changed it. And humans noticed. That may have been one of the first great lessons fire taught our ancestors. Danger could also be useful. We don't know exactly when humans first began controlling fire. Evidence for the earliest use of fire is debated, and very ancient traces can be difficult to distinguish from natural burning. But by hundreds of thousands of years ago, there is strong archaeological evidence that some human populations were regularly using fire. And once fire became part of human life, everything changed. Imagine the first time a group carried burning embers back to camp. Someone must have discovered that the glowing material could remain hot long after the flames disappeared. A piece of burning wood could be protected, covered with ash, fed with dry fuel, and somehow, the fire could survive. That was a discovery almost as important as the flame itself, because now fire didn't have to be found. It could be carried. The group no longer had to wait for lightning. They could take the sun's warmth into the night. The first controlled fires would have transformed the darkness. Before fire, night wasn't simply dark. It was a boundary. Beyond the last light, humans could see almost nothing. Predators could move unseen. Familiar landscapes became mysterious. But around a fire, the darkness moved backward. Faces appeared. Hands became visible. Children could remain close to their parents. People could work after sunset. The group could see what was approaching. For perhaps the first time, humans were changing the nighttime environment around themselves. And that may have changed something inside the human mind. The fire crackled. A child reached toward the flames. His mother pulled his hand back. Too close. The boy stared at the fire. He didn't understand why something that looked so beautiful could hurt him. That contradiction was everywhere. Fire was dangerous. Fire was useful. Fire could kill. Fire could protect. It could destroy food, or make food easier to eat. It could burn skin, or warm a freezing body. It could drive animals away, or bring humans together. And perhaps this is one reason fire became so deeply embedded in human culture. It wasn't simply a tool. It changed the environment around us. Cooking may have been particularly important. Heating food changes its texture and can make some foods easier to chew and digest. Cooking can also destroy many pathogens and reduce the effort required to process certain foods. But the story goes deeper. Around a fire, people had time. Time to eat. Time to communicate. Time to care for children. Time to repair tools. Time to teach. Time to simply sit together. The fire became a social center. And night, which had once been a period of forced inactivity, became an extension of the human day. Imagine an ancient camp hundreds of thousands of years ago. The sun has disappeared, but nobody is completely alone in the darkness. An old woman sits close to the flames. A young hunter repairs a stone tool. A mother feeds her child. Someone breaks a piece of cooked meat and passes it across the fire. The youngest members watch the adults. They learn, not from a classroom, not from a book, from watching, from copying, from listening. Fire may have helped create the conditions in which this kind of social learning could flourish. But there was another transformation. Food. Raw meat can be tough. Some plants are difficult to digest. Cooking changes food chemically and physically. It softens tissues, breaks down certain compounds, and can make calories and nutrients more accessible. For a species with an unusually large and energy-demanding brain, reliable access to higher quality food would have been enormously valuable. Scientists still debate exactly how cooking influenced human evolution and when it became habitual. But the basic principle is clear. Fire didn't just warm humans. It changed what humans could eat. And what happened next was even more profound. Humans began shaping fire instead of merely reacting to it. They learned which would burn longest, which materials caught quickly, how to protect embers from wind, how to build a fire that could survive the night. This was the beginning of something much bigger. Technology isn't always a complicated machine. Sometimes, it's knowing how to make a dangerous force work for you. A lightning strike became a controlled flame. A natural phenomenon became a human tool, and the psychological effect may have been enormous. For the first time, humans could create a small piece of daylight whenever they needed it. That idea never disappeared. Thousands of generations later, we still carry artificial light into darkness. Candles, lamps, streetlights, flashlights, phone screens, cities glowing long after the sun has disappeared. We have surrounded ourselves with light because our ancestors learned something very important. Darkness doesn't have to control us. But fire had another lesson. It demanded respect. The child who reached too close learned quickly. The hunter who carried a burning branch learned to protect it from the wind. The family that left a fire unattended learned that fire could escape its boundaries. Every generation learned the same balance. Control it, but never forget what it is. That relationship still exists today. You sit beside a campfire and feel calm. You watch flames move. You hear wood crack. You feel warmth against your skin. Something about it feels familiar. Perhaps that's because your species has spent an extraordinary amount of time gathering around flames. When you stare into a fire today, you're participating in something unimaginably old. The technology has changed. The world has changed. We have satellites, cities, electricity, and machines capable of crossing oceans. But when the lights disappear, humans still gather around light. Because somewhere deep in our history, there was a moment when our ancestors first discovered that the terrifying thing glowing in the darkness could become their greatest ally. They didn't conquer fire. They learned to live beside it. And perhaps that's what makes fire one of the most important discoveries in human history. It didn't simply give us heat. It gave us a way to push back the darkness and, for the first time, make the night feel a little more like home.